Crazy Elk 99 here. Last week I had the pleasure of attending a CMP or Civilian Marksmanship Program Advanced Maintenance Course in Anniston, Alabama, and I thought I'd do a video to share with people might be interested in doing something like that, and what they can expect, what you get, what the experience was like. Of course, this is a sample survey size of 1 of 1, so it's just my opinion. For some of it's my opinion, some of it will be fact. But basically, when you're done, you're going to end up with this rascal right here. I'm sure everybody is familiar with this platform. It's the M1 Garand, and it's a beautiful firearm. The M1 Garand is my favorite, absolute favorite battle rifle. I don't have a whole lot of time behind the trigger on one, but I just love shooting them, and I love the history that goes along with it. So let me jump right in here. So first of all, the Advanced Maintenance Course, or they call it the AMC, it is not a gunsmith course or an armorer's course, and they don't market it as such. That's why they call it a maintenance course. For my part, I would call it a detailed disassembly and assembly plus course, because in addition to knowing how to take the gun apart and put it back together, you're gonna pick up some more information on the firearm as well. So how do you get in one of these courses? You basically, when they open up the window for the year's courses, you go in and pick the dates that you're applying for or that you would like to go, and then the window's open for a few days or a week for people to put their name in the hat, so to speak. And then there's a lottery, because there's a tons of demand for this course, and they just don't have that many slots. Each class is 20 students, with an asterisk. Ours was 22. But the way it works is they have solo classes, so all 20 students would be individual, so to speak. Then they have a buddy class where you can sign up with a buddy, and then you both go on that time. Well, I was supposed to go, but first of all, I wasn't selected. After they closed the window and did the lottery, I wasn't selected, but then I was selected as a standby. So I guess somebody dropped out, so I was scheduled for the July or August. I forget exactly which date. And the day before I was supposed to leave, I got COVID. So I emailed Hector, who's the individual that you'll interact with via email and or the phone, and let him know I couldn't make it. And he was able to reschedule me for an October class, and I was happy for him to have done that. So that's how the process works. Now, what you're paying for, you're paying two things. Okay, you're paying for the course itself. That's the course of instruction, if you will, or for the experience, and you're paying for the parts that you assemble. So in essence, a gun. So if you're selected, Hector sends out some forms you have to fill out. One of them you have to get notarized, that kind of stuff, and then he takes the fee for the course, and then you're not charged for the rifle itself or the firearm until you get to the course and you do that part of it. It's a 3-day course of instruction, and pardon me, I've got a lot of notes here. I don't want to forget anything. I know I'll forget some stuff, but I'm going to try not to forget anything. 3-day course of instruction. Really, it's 2 days of instruction, day 1 and day 2, and day 3 is a range day. That's kind of an optional day, because after day 2, you'll have a completed firearm, provided you didn't have any problems with the assembly. If you want to, and your state allows, you can take your firearm home after day 2, and you wouldn't have to go to range day. But if you do that, and your gun doesn't work, it's on you to fix it or send it back to them and have it fixed at cost. Whereas if you take it to the range and you have some malfunctions, we'll talk more about that. You've got some insurance, so to speak. The day 1 and 2 are at the Anniston facility, one of CMP's Anniston facilities. There's a couple there. And day 3 is at the Talladega range / park, if you will. Each day, each of the 1 and 2 days, the cadre provides coffee and donuts, ample supply of donuts. And on day 3 on the range, they don't do coffee because they don't really have that set up there, but you can bring your own coffee, and they do bring donuts for day 3. What you'll get out of the course, what you'll receive, you're going to receive parts that you put together that will look like something very much like this when you're done. So you're going to get the rifle. With the rifle, you're going to get a certificate of authenticity, a CMP certificate. I'm going by the list so I don't forget anything. You're going to get a chamber flag with your rifle. You're going to get a hard case right here. It's injection molded where the Grand fits right in perfectly, and that is TSA approved, I'm told. You're going to get a reproduction web sling, never used. You're going to get a t-shirt, looks like this on the front and that on the back. You're going to get a book, US 30 caliber service rifle, volumes 1 and 2 by Jerry Kuhnhausen, I think is how you say that name. If you're familiar with his work, his books are very thorough, almost too technical in a way. There's some other books out there that I like that aren't quite this technical, but this has got everything you need to know. Whether you need to know the level of that is a whole nother thing. You're going to get a owner's manual such that you would get when you buy most firearms. Do this, don't do that kind of thing. And you're going to get one, count it, one in-block clip. And on range day, you'll receive 8 rounds of ammunition for yourself for just familiarization fire. I already covered the class size, the workstations, the way they're set up. It's a long bench. I think it's probably a series of benches put together. And there's a toolbox for every 2 people. For most all tools, there's a toolbox for every 2 people. And so it's kind of set up for the buddy class system. Luckily, I interacted well with the gentleman sitting to my right, and we shared a toolbox. The asterisk there on the tools, there's the bolt lapping kit. That's one of the things you do. There's only one for every 4 students. That's less than ideal. There's a barrel vise. Each one has a bench vise, but there's also a barrel vise for when you're installing the barrel in the receiver. The course is based on building an expert grade M1 Garand, such as they sell in their shop online or in their store. And if you're curious about what the definition of expert grade is, I didn't read that definition, but basically it's a rifle that was built from parts with new wood, a refurbished receiver. This one's they only use Springfield Armory receivers. This one's I think dated 1944 or something. Some parts in the gun are new, some parts are refurbished, and we'll talk more about that as we go. So the course is a mix of PowerPoint slides, videos, instructional demonstrations, and hands-on assembly. So for the PowerPoint slides, they have some videos built into them. There's some slides and there's some videos within them. You don't get a copy of any of the instruction when you leave. They just don't want people taking the instruction and sharing it and then basically losing potential customers, which I don't think they ever lose potential customers. But I understand what they're saying. They don't mind if you take as many pictures as you want in the classroom, and if you want to take some video in the classroom, you can. They just don't want you videoing kind of the whole piece of the instruction. There are areas where they tell you cannot take photographs outside the classroom within some of the CMP facilities, but they clearly tell you where those are. At the range, there's no photography restrictions at all. Okay, so we'll go into day 1. Again, your experience, this could change at any time if they change the curriculum, and your experience may change as well based on your class and how it is set up. But ours, the students arrived between 7:30 and 8, and at 8 o'clock the instruction started on day 1, and we were out of there at 6 o'clock on day 1. On day 1, I'm going to tell you some of the stuff that's in the course. I won't tell you every single detail, but some of the stuff. On day 1, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to pick your receiver. So if there's 20 students in the class, they'll already have inspected 20 receivers that have been refinished and previously inspected. The instructors inspect them. They set them on a table, and they basically say, "Okay, everybody go up and pick your receiver." So some people are more aggressive at that than others. Some people are looking for something specific. Somebody maybe wanted one that looked a little prettier. Somebody else maybe wanted one that had a low serial number indicating it'd be older, or high serial number meaning maybe the quality's a little better on it. That kind of thing. I didn't want to get into the push and shoving. There really wasn't push and shoving, but you know what I mean. So I just reached in and grabbed one and brought it back, and it looks fine. It's got a couple of machining marks on it, whatever, but it didn't look. I wasn't disappointed in it. So you're doing the receiver, and again, all the receivers are Springfield Armory that they use for these courses, and I assume for their expert grade online sales rifles as well. And so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to select the bolt, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to put the number of bolts that they have students in the class. I don't know if they had any extra ones up there or not on the bolts. I don't think they did receivers because they don't want any serialized parts walking away. You know, if somebody snags one and tries to hide it. Don't think that happened on this class for sure. But the bolts, you're going to go up, same thing, kind of pick one. And again, some of the finish may be a little better on others. I did look at a couple different bolts, and some have a little, you know, didn't look quite as pretty as other ones. But the one I ended up choosing had a couple little rust specks on it, and I just wiped them off with my thumb. That's just a residual rusting from the parkerization or whatever process they use, the chemical there. Um, and so after you get your bolt and your receiver, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to lap the surfaces of the receiver where the bolt engages, so that you got a nice true surface. And that's one of the parts where there's not enough tool to go around. So there's a significant bit of dead time there, but that's also time maybe to pick the brains of the instructors or whatever. So try not to waste any dead time you see there. Um, so you lap your bolt, and then the next thing you do is you install the barrel onto the receiver. And I'm not going to go into the process on that, but it's very it doesn't seem to be very, very precise if you would have it explained to you. But if you think about it, a machine's not doing it. So considering it's done by man, you're timing, I shouldn't say you're timing, you're indexing the barrel. So it's, you're indexing the barrel or receiver so it's true with the barrel. And you do that via some alignment rods, and it works out fine. Um, it's not, there's potential to goof up though. So after that, the next thing you do is you're going to cut the chamber and the throat on the barrel. This is after it's installed into the receiver using a manual reamer. And they provide that. I think there's one of those for every 2 students. So that goes fairly quickly, and it doesn't take very long. So I was familiar with that process the first time I'd ever done it. And then after you've got your chamber and throat cut, then you're going to do a headspace check to go and no go. I've done that before many times, building ARs and messing around with handguns and stuff as well. Provided, and the instructors will come by and check and make sure your work is good. So that was pretty much the essence of day one. Oh, let me back up. In day one, you also do a tour of the facility of the custom shop, where they convert 1903s to Model 41 sniper rifles, or you want them to refinish your stock, or you want them to do whatever, turn your gun into a national match, whatever. They do all kinds of stuff there, and I have no doubt they do very good quality work in the custom shop. So you tour the custom shop. You're allowed to ask questions and see some of the stuff they're doing there, and you also tour the shop where the regular M1s that come in are gone through, put back together, and then put on the shelf for sale or put on the website for sale. You see all the boxes of parts, which is kind of impressive. But so you do that. Unfortunately, you don't get to tour the 1911 facility where they're redoing the 1911s for the 1911 program. I would have really liked to have seen that. I'm a 1911 guy too. So then after that, and again, I don't remember where in the day the tour came. I think it was right before lunch or right after. But on day 2, you're going to pick your own trigger housing, same kind of way you did the receivers and the bolt. They're going to be setting up there, and you're going to go up there and try to get one that you think looks good, I guess, because assuming everything else is good, that's really all you're going off of. I did pick up 2 or 3 different trigger housings and got one that didn't have too much pitting on them. A lot of them where you'll see pitting isn't on the outside surface so much. It's on the surface that's inside that had contact with the wood before, because that's where the moisture will accumulate and not go away. So my trigger housing looks pretty good. And then the next thing you're going to do is pick a trigger guard. Same kind of process. You're going to have them laying up there. You're going to look at a couple of them. You're inspecting for basically aesthetic peel, the finish, how much pitting's on it, that kind of stuff. I'll get back to that a little later. And those are a mix. If you're familiar with the Grand, there's different iterations throughout the manufacturing of the platform, the stamped or milled trigger guards, and most all of them they had out there. I ended up getting a milled one. Most all of them they had out there were milled. There was a few stamped ones in there. It wasn't too big of a deal for me, but some people may want one or the other. Okay, and the trigger assembly, it's probably not the hardest thing you're going to do in the course, but there's some technical aspect to it on assembling the trigger assembly. But it's not rocket science. It's, if you've got general mechanical aptitude, you'll have no problem. They do have you do it once you get it assembled and you function check it and everything. Make sure the trigger works and the Sears catch and the safety works and all that. They're gonna have you take it apart, put it back together several times. They don't sit there and watch you do it, but it's on you. You've got the time, so make sure you're comfortable with understanding how that works before moving on, because this is your time with them to kind of ask questions and seek help or techniques. A lot of gunsmithing is no different than working on a car, motorcycle, or anything else mechanical. A lot of it is technique, and one technique may work great for one person, but another person, a different technique may work for them. So one of the other things you do toward the latter part of the day, not the end of the day, is pick your operating rod. And I talked about these parts are all a mix of new or refurbished parts. Now the operating rods, they had a bunch of them laid out. You go pick one, right? The operating rod, typically, from what I understand, this is my first time I've really dove into the Grand. There's a bit of a bend in the operating rod as it is anyway. Some of these rascals look like snakes. So when you pick your operating rod, first of all, they weren't new, and they were, from what I understand, they were supposed to be refurbished, but they certainly didn't look refurbished. I picked one, and they have you do this thing before you put the spring in. You just have the barrel assembly. The wood, of course, isn't on it, and you put your operating rod in there, and you have you do this. In the orientation of the rifle would be if you were shooting it, but you're holding it like this, and you're tilting it like this, and tilting it like that, and the operating rod should slide freely down. You go over there, freely down that way. Well, it didn't for almost everybody in the class, far from freely in some cases. I ended up going through, I lost count. I got to the point where I wasn't even going up there and getting one and bringing it back anymore. I'd go up and get 4 or 5 and bring it back. So I think it took me 8 or 10, and some of them, once you got in, they wouldn't move at all. So you knew that was a no-go. Some of they failed right off the bat. I think it was 8 or 10 of them before I got one, and the angels sang, and the stars were aligned and all that, and it really worked great. Of the 22 students in our class, 5 people couldn't get an operating rod to work, and it was clear. And I don't put this on the instructors. I don't know who picks their parts, but it was clear that the instructor, the primary instructor, and I'll talk a little bit about the cadre if I haven't already in a few minutes, were not happy with the quality of the operating rods and the condition they were in. So they cut it off there. They said, all right, stop. If yours isn't working by this point, because at this point we'd been at least an hour, people trying to get operating rods to work. And they said, if yours isn't working, just continue on with the assembly. Leave your gun here tonight when you go home, or go back to your hotel. And Luke was the primary instructor's name. He's their master gunsmith there for the custom shop, and Rob was his right-hand man. They were going to stay after and get those guns working and bring them to the range for day 3. I got to back up a little bit on day 2. I didn't tell you the hours. Again, we started class at 8, and we were out of there about 6:30. And by the end of day 2, you have an operating rifle. Well, I just talked about maybe you don't, but you should have. So the operating rods was a frustration for the cadre and the students, for sure. Quality and condition of them varied greatly. They did, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of myself, I made notes, but they stayed, and they said within an hour or 2 they had them all running. But they said they also grabbed a box of 200 more operating rods and brought them in. Now, I don't know how many they tried. Those guys are pretty good, so they work pretty fast, so they probably tried a good number of them. Okay, so a caveat is unless I told you part of the firearm that you get was handpicked, in other words, you got to choose from a selection, they were just handed to you. They were either on your station already when you got there, or they went around and handed them to each station. So many of the parts you don't get to pick yourself. One of the other things you do on day 2 before you get a final assembly is you install the rear side assembly. They give you a brand new rear side assembly assembled inside of a Ziploc bag, and you take it apart and put it in. And these are brand new. I don't know who makes them, but the failure rate on them was pretty high. This is the sight cover, rear sight cover on mine. That was the first one I was given. It failed, and you wouldn't think there's too much to it, but it failed. And none of these failures surprised the instructors. So this tells me these are common failure items on a brand new part. So that's a little troubling. I want to say trunnion. No, it's a pinion. They call it the pinions. The part you basically turn. On mine, it was all assembled. Everything looked like it was doing right. And then when I went to turn my sight to adjust it, it wouldn't turn. So he said, "No, your pinion's bad." So he gave me another one, took it all apart, put it back together. Again, I wasn't the only one having problems there. So it is what it is. We worked through it and we got the parts, but luckily, I think everybody got their sights running. Okay, one other thing on day 2 this was around the lunch period. Right before the lunch period, you break for lunch. You get a time enough to go to a fast food place and bring something back or eat there and come back. The instructors offered to. There was 2 instructors, like I said, Luke and Rob. They offered for anybody that wanted it done to theirs to clean up their trigger. And of course, everybody's going to want that, right? I don't know who wouldn't. And I thought mine didn't feel real gritty, but it was awful dadgum heavy. Well, so I watched him do a couple as I was waiting in line, and he really didn't work on the trigger. He worked on the hammer, where the hammer surface engages the sear on the trigger, or it's a disconnector. I forget which. But he only worked on that one surface, and he did it with the trigger assembled, and it took him 2 to 5 minutes on the ones he was working on. Not very long. And he was basically trying to get it where you had a nice clean engagement surface there, where you couldn't see a light in it. And I handed him mine, and he tried it a couple times, had a quizzical look on his face, and goes, "This one's good the way it is." And I was kind of surprised because it's not a light trigger. I haven't put a trigger pull gauge on it yet, but I'll do that sometime. I'm just curious. So that's offered. I would take advantage of that because, if they're offering to clean up your trigger, why wouldn't you? So that's day 2. Day 3, the range, 8 a.m. showtime at the Talladega range. You're going to start off by watching a video for the CMP range there itself. The cadre don't run the range. The head instructor, Luke, he is a certified range safety officer, but each range has its own safety officers already, and they're the bosses. But before you even go down to the range, you're in the classroom and you're watching a video on you can do this, don't do that, etc. I'm not going to go into all the stuff on the range. I'm sure if you pull it up online, you can learn some more stuff about that. Then I don't want this video to be any longer than it's already going to be, and it's not going to be short. As I said, range day is optional. If you want to take your weapon home, provided your state lets you, at the end of day 2, you can go home. So if you wanted to cut down on your expenses, you could knock off a night at a hotel. But when you get to the range, I don't want to get ahead of myself. You safety brief, range rules in the classroom, and after that, you got up with the cadre about an hour of question and answer in general. Like maybe you had some questions. One question that I asked, because as pretty as the wood is on these, there's no finish or stain on them. It looks like it. It looks like it's been stained. But he said, no, this is the only treat it with some kind of a chemical is to keep the rodents and stuff from messing with the wood. So if you want it finished, so there's no protection on this from the elements whatsoever. So if you want that done, you can leave it with them after you're done for the custom shop and put an order in for that. It's $285 for them to put the basic coat. Three different. It's a 7-day process. They explained it. Getting ahead of myself, but the question and answer period, that's what I asked. I said, can you share with us, because it's not provided, can you share with us the process that you use or recommend to put a stain on a firearm, on this firearm, or a finish? I shouldn't use the word stain. And he was happy to do it, but he saved that to the last question because he said that's the long answer, and I took as many notes as I could. kind of sloppily. I'm going to try and transpose them and email them back to them and say, did I get this right? Because it's not that I'm cheap. It's time intensive. So just under $300 for them to do it, in my opinion, that's probably a bargain. But I like to do stuff myself. Hands-on guy. Some people are, some people aren't. And then after the question and answer, you got about an hour to go to the store and see if you want to buy some more ammo, or if you want to maybe buy another rifle, because they had Garands there. I don't know if they had any Craigs there, but they had some 1903s. They had some 22 match rifles there that they sell, used ones, and the Garands, everything from an expert grade to various condition of more period authentic ones available. If I would say this, if you go and you think you might want to buy ammo, I was going to go to the Anderson store anyway. So to buy anything in the store, you have to fill out some forms ahead of time. And if you buy it from one store and use that form, when you go to the next store, you have to do the same thing. I was lazy and it ended up costing me, because I wanted to buy ammo to take home. I didn't buy any at Talladega at the range. I should have, because when I went to Anniston, which was on the drive home, they didn't have any 30-06 ammo. So that's on me. But so if you're interested in buying anything, and I also will say this, the Talladega store, I think, was better than the Anniston store as far as what all they had there. So after that, you go down to the range, you shoot on range 2, which is a 100-yard range. You're going to do a class photo, and then the instructors are going to take an in block and eight rounds, not your 8 rounds or your in block, but theirs, and they're going to function fire your firearm. They're going to do a basic sight adjustment. I think 12 clicks up and 2 clicks right is what Luke starts off with. I'm sure Rob does the same thing, because they started at one end of the range and each one went in the range and worked this way. And I was target number 6, working with Luke on my end, and target number 1. So Luke shoots a couple rounds, makes an adjustment to get the point of impact, point of aim down where he's hitting where he thinks he should be hitting, and he just stands up offhand shooting into the berm as fast as he can to make sure the rifle's not going to have any fast fire cycling issues. So he did that in the first couple, and then the next couple, they both had failures. From what I could tell, it wasn't an ejection system or ejection problem or extraction problem. It was a gas problem. So he set those aside, and they're going to function test all the rifles. Once they get done with them, they'll come back to the ones that didn't work and start working on. They did bring parts with them to the range and get them to work. If they can get them to work, you do your shoot your ammo you want to shoot that day, and go on about your happy way. If they can't get them to work for some reason, you'll leave them there and you'll go home. They'll get them to work and they'll send them to you. So that's kind of how that works. It's about as all you could ask, really. So as far as the range goes, it normally costs, I think, $30 for the day for this range. It's a very nice facility. Electronic targets, electronic scoring targets, and you got a little display right at each shooting bench. Very cool. First time I ever shot it with something like that. I'd love to have something like that. But you have full use of all the ranges. So we shot on range 2. It was a 100-yard range. Range 1 is a 200 through 600-yard range, and then there's those are known distance ranges, and there's an unknown distance range as well. But you have full use of the range all day to shoot whatever firearms you brought with you. So if you want to take advantage of that, you're traveling in your car, probably bring another firearm or 2 if you want to. I didn't do it because I wanted to get an early start back home. I had to be back for reasons. So, but yeah, so that's that. So now that's kind of what you can expect. Now I want to give you some my impressions of the course instruction and the instruction itself. I'm going to say Luke it's all up here. He wasn't reading anything. He knew he knows this stuff, and he's got a great personality, very open. It's not a sterile environment. He wants you to be comfortable there to ask questions. He wants you to be comfortable to make mistakes, because if you make mistakes, you're going to learn, and so is the guy next to you. I don't think he said that, but that's the impression I get. But they're very knowledgeable, and their method of instruction I thought was as good as it could be. So the way they do it when you're assembling it, it's pretty much a build as you go. So it's a step by step. You're not going to watch the course and all right, everybody put their gun together. They're going to do one part at a time. So the instructor will demonstrate, and then he'll say, okay, go ahead and don't get ahead of me. So then everybody else will put theirs part. That way, it's not quite as disruptive if somebody's way ahead and somebody else is way behind. And if you don't do it that way, people get stressed out. That people tend to get stressed out. They get stressed out that they're falling behind, and that just makes things worse. So it's a build as go. Significant. So some negative issues I'll point out, and good, bad, and ugly. Right? That's what it's all about. Due to sharing some of the tools, there was a lot of dead space. Christoph, no, my dog's about to knock over my tripod. I apologize. So the lapping phase, where you should only be lapping about 15 minutes to get it where it's nice and pretty, and you got about 75-80% of the surface at least lapped. Some guys were taking longer because they had never been familiar with the process, or they didn't, I'll say this, there's no mechanical aptitude required to go into this course. Some guys had far better grasp of mechanical principles and use of tools than other guys. Some guys didn't have much at all. I'm not going to say names. Frankly, I don't know too many. I think I only know the names of the guy next to me, and he was good to go. So if you're watching, Robert, you're good to go. But yeah, so during the lapping phase, it was probably about an hour and a half. It should have been an hour, and of that, you're only doing about 15 minutes worth of work. So that was kind of frustrating. Really would be nice if they had more bolt lapping kits, so that they could, even if they had twice as many, you're going to cut the time in half. The other thing is waiting for students to catch up. I already talked about the varying experience base of the students, but because of that, and you're doing it one step at a time, there's going to be some dead time, because you're going to get it faster than some people sometimes, and maybe sometimes not. But that's a negative. I don't know if that can be overcome when you're operating with a class of 20 people. The operating rod debacle, I already covered that. That was definitely a mood breaker. I'm not going to lie to you. One thing I will say is, and again, caveat is, or disclaimer is, right from the start I said this isn't marketed as an armors or a gunsmith course, but I will say it would be nice if they would have covered the cycle of operation step by step. There's typically eight steps in the cycle of operation. Yeah, see if he's gonna knock over my tripod. And they don't cover it at all. They cover some parts of the cycle of operation, but not in as aspiring armors, hobbyist armors would like to see it. So that they don't do that. Internal function of some components was discussed, but not any depth or conceptual understanding. So stay away from the tripod, Harper. No. I don't know why they got to be close to me. They're actually eating acorns or something. I don't know what the heck they're eating. But as far as the internal functioning of components they do cover some while you're assembling it, but not to a level where I feel like the majority of the students have a concept that could use that information in troubleshooting a failure in the firearm. That's probably about it all. And there's really limited troubleshooting / cause and effect discussed at all. If it is, it's kind of a sidebar comment more than it is directed at that. This course is 2 days of instruction, 1 day at the range. It could easily be another day, and I wouldn't even say they would have to call it a full-on armors course, but it would really be nice if they really went a little deeper into the operation of the firearm, so that as a user, when something hiccups, you've got a better understanding of maybe what it is, so you don't have to take it to somebody or send it in. And I don't think they're doing it so you send them the gun to fix it. I don't think that's it. I'm not sure why they're doing it the way they are or aren't doing it different. They do talk about gauging the throat in the gas bore cylinder, and they demonstrate it on video, but you don't get to do it in person. So So that's it on the course construction. Now, the impression of the quality of components provided. I'm going to roll in somewhere in here. I'm going to split in some footage of my gun and what I don't like about it. Okay, what I think could have been better. But some of the major components had major pitting. In the trigger housing, I saw a lot of those on the left and right of me, and I didn't walk around and look at everybody's, but I did pick a couple up before I picked this one, and some of them had quite a bit of pitting where the wood contacts the underside of the trigger housing. The trigger guard, I didn't look very close at mine, so I already had it back in my station. I'm like, well, I'm going to take it and I don't even know if there was any more setting up there or not, and if there would have been, somebody else was going to end up with it. So I'm going to roll in footage of the pitting on my trigger guard, and let you be let you determine on your own if you think it's you'd want to pay for it.
And here's some of the pitting, deep pitting on the trigger guard that I was talking about. That's the one side. The other side not quite as bad. Yeah, here's the other side. And I said it's not quite as bad. Not as deep, but it's a larger footprint of an area. Almost going to live with that.
I didn't talk about cost, but let me go ahead and do that so I don't forget. I would save it to the end. I'm going to save it to miscellaneous cost. Quality rear sight assemblies, I talked about that. These were brand new items, and it wasn't surprising that they failed at the rate they did. Quality operating rods, I think we beat that horse a little bit. Quality of wood, metal fitment / wood to metal fitment / inletting around my butt plate. It's not even, I mean, in some areas it's not even close. It's really ridiculous where the wood's overhanging the butt plate quite a bit. That's, again, we're paying so much for these that I don't think that's necessary, or that I don't think that's acceptable. The other thing is the clip right here over the rear handguard on mine. I'll roll in some footage and you'll see what I mean. But it's above the wood on one side, and it's inlet by about a 1/16 of an inch on the other side. It just doesn't. I mean, it's functional. Don't get me wrong. It's functional.
Okay, here I'm going to show you the wood metal fitment issue that I really don't like. And when I refinish it, I can take that wood down in an even manner so that it is much more presentable. So here's the handguard clip. You can get an idea of what I'm talking about there. And I actually picked a couple expert grade rifles up that were in the shop, in the retail shop, to compare. And they were not like this. And actually the fitting on the butt plate was fine on those as well. So that's why this is a little disappointing.
But I'm going to try and fix it. I'm going to try because I've got to take it all apart anyway to refinish it. So why not try to fix that? So that's that. Miscellaneous. I'm going to talk about cost before I forget. I'm going to talk ballpark numbers because I don't have the sheet in front of me. It's about $2,500 all total for the course and the gun, and it's almost split 50-50 if I'm not mistaken. For half of that's the course and half of it is the gun. Now, of course, so it's not cheap, and you can get one of these. I don't know what all they do to it compared to what we do to ours in the course. You can get one of these for $1,200 that looks just like it. Looks like a brand new rifle like these do, visually anyway, in the shop in their online shop or in the store for $1,200. So if you just want the gun and don't want the course of instruction or the experience, and that's what they're marketing, they even say this is about the experience, then go that route. But while I'm on miscellaneous, I'm going to say ask questions and take notes. Again, you don't get any material other than this book, and we never once cracked this book open during the course. They said everything's in the book. It surprised me if it's not somewhere or another because the book's pretty extensive. But take notes, take pictures. I took a picture of a lot of slides and not nearly all of them if I thought it was pertinent. I already talked about the wood doesn't have a finish on it. I talked about your assembling the rifle. What you're not assembling, all the wood comes with the metal on it. So this clips are already going to be on it. The The metal for the front handguard is on it, and your butt plate's already on it. So all the metal that goes onto the wood, whatever it may be, is already installed when you get it. Custom shop, like I said, if you want something done to your rifle and extra, you can leave your rifle behind. Like I said, if your state allows, you can take these home. But if you don't want to take them home or can't for some reason, they'll ship them to you for free. If you elect to leave it in the custom shop to have something done on it, they do give priority. You don't have to wait as long to get your work done in the custom shop. It's not why you wait. You're leaving it there. But you lose the free shipping and return option, which I think is kind of cheesy. I mean, if you had free shipping and rolled into the course and you didn't use that and you just moved the gun over to the custom shop for them to do some stuff and send it back to you in a month or whatever, why wouldn't they still be able to roll the free shipping in? I don't know. It is what it is. And also, here's a piece of information you're going to want to know. Hopefully, you're seeing this video right away. November 1st. So that's just in a few days. Friday, I think, right? Open is the first day of sign up for 2025 classes. So that's enough time, in my opinion. If you've got a week's vacation coming to you, or you're retired or whatever, sign up for every single class you can sign up for to maximize your odds. Every single date, I should say, to maximize your odds. The signups are only open, I think, less than a week. I want to say, because I was trying to look back when I signed up back in November, about a year ago, last year, I think it was, and I think it was less than a week, maybe only 4 or 5 days, and then they close it. And once it's closed, you're not getting in. You know, I mean, you're not getting in because they're going to have way more people than they'll have slots. So now, saying that, I'll just close with this. My overall impression: would I do it, knowing what I know now? I've got disappointments. You know, I've covered them, but nothing's perfect in this world, and I'm saying that what you're getting. Oh, I forgot to mention too. My rear handguard that has the clip issue. It's also got a little chunk of wood on the corner out. Adds a little character to it. But if you're building what's supposed to look like a new rifle, anyway. So would I do it again? Yes, I would do it again. Negatives aside, or negatives considered, I would do it again. I'm going to work on the wood myself anyway. I've got just a little experience working with stocks, and I'm going to try and get that inletting or that wood a little smoother back here. The challenge is probably going to be this rear handguard and getting that clip off without breaking the handguard. We'll see. I can't do anything about the chip. The chips I'm going to have to live with, and that'll just be what it is. So hope you found this informative. Do me a favor. I know I forgot something that somebody might have. I tried to think of everything that was pertinent and things that people might have asked questions on. But if you've got any questions on the course, if I'm able to provide the answer, I certainly will. Drop it in the notes. You're going to see this on YouTube, and you're also going to see it if you're on my Freedom Unfurled page. And I'm not promoting my page, but I run a Facebook page called Freedom Unfurled. Go check it out if you want. Don't have tons of content on there, but it's freedom-oriented individuals, left, right, I don't care. Yeah, I'll post it there as well, because I post all my videos on there after I post them to YouTube. That'll be on there sometime tonight. Hope you found this productive, and I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.